right, and we are live. Happy Monday evening, everyone. You have found, once again, an episode of The Living Force. And before we get to the intro, we just want to say one thing on a semi-serious note here real quick. This past week, we got to celebrate the launch of a new project in Star Wars called Project Stardust. One of our own, Meg Dowell, was instrumental in creating this amazing site run by women, written by women, for women in Star Wars to celebrate a side of Star Wars that doesn't always get the play it should. There were articles that were fantastically written. The general response has been really great, but there has been a vocal minority of people that have been horrible to the creators of this website. And for what it's worth, we want to say officially on this episode, get out. We don't want you here. You do not throw hate towards people who are putting love and beautiful things into the community. Meg and everyone involved in Project Stardust, we love you. We welcome you into this community. We're so excited for what you can bring. And if you're throwing hate at them, then yeah, no time for you. And on that, Wes, punch it! Man, I love that intro. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Living Force podcast. I am one of your hosts, Eric Eilerson, and joining me tonight are the doctors themselves. First off, we have Dr. Corey Helton. Hello, sir.
What's up? How are you guys doing?
Oh, better now that you're here as always. And of course, to add to the joyful tones, we have Dr. Charles Hankel. Hey, man.
Hello there. I will never have the same energy as Corey, but I can aspire to it.
You gotta work on those finger guns, dog. Finger guns.
Right?
It's all about the finger guns. Speaking of finger guns, we have the finger gun legend extraordinaire to round us out, Wes Jenkins.
Greetings, everyone. Good to see you. And in the chat, I guess.
You nailed it. We don't need another take. Perfect. Oh, and to everyone in the chat, welcome in. If this is your first time joining us, you have just found the Living Force, a positive, lovely community we like to think in the Star Wars galaxy. We are from the site utini.com, where you can go for all your Star Wars reviews, reading guides, and everything you need to dive into the Star Wars expanded universe. We have a vibrant online community, which you can check out by heading over to utini.com/discord, and a Patreon jam-packed with hours of extra content at patreon.com/utini. More on that later. There's some cool stuff coming out. But to start off the show, everyone, we are going to be talking about some anthology books in this episode, including Dark Legends by George Mann and Star Wars, The Clone Wars, Stories of Light and Dark. I nailed it. Great title. Later on in the show. But before we get to that, I want to address something we said in the intro in a totally new way. Y'all, on Friday, we got to witness the launch of Project Stardust, a brand new website in the Star Wars community, and I was freaking blown away. Guys, this was awesome.
It was fantastic. We've been talking with Meg a lot behind the scenes at Utini. We've known this project was launching for a long time, but we finally saw the official launch of it this week. Project Stardust. It seems to be how do we describe it? Like a for women by women in a Star Wars safe place with a lot of really good commentary for females in the Star Wars community, which is fantastic. And it looks super, super good. They have a huge team. I was checking out their Instagram this week, where they sort of went through and showing everybody their team. We should do that ourselves, actually, because they kind of introduced everybody. We're already
going to say, they've been up for 4 days, and we're like, oh, wait, good idea. We got to take it.
Yeah, it's really, really good stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen any of their articles, but one of them came across my Twitter yesterday. I think I shared it with you guys. It was incredibly, incredibly well written. So impressed with the quality of their site right out the gate. Because, I mean, how many renditions of utini.com have we gone through? 8?
Only one. It's always been this. It's always been good.
Yeah, it's really good stuff.
Yeah.
You guys need to check it out if you're a lady and you've ever faced any sort of opposition. How could you have not faced that in this community? I mean,
and And also, I mean, just if you're a Star Wars fan, check it out, because this is a site certainly that is specifically aiming to be like a safe place for women in the fandom, but like it's just straight up good content.
It is.
And like
It's
if you're
really
a Star Wars
content.
fan, you will find something on there that you enjoy.
Yeah, and before we go any further on that, it is project-stardust.org is the URL. And I want to shout out a lot of the creators of Stardust jumped into our Discord this week, and we got to meet them and chat with them about all the goings on. We have a new Stardust emoticon emoji that that Jose, I'm not gonna say we did nothing, that Jose created for the Discord and celebration. There's a channel for Project Stardust in there where you can share all the articles that you want to share from that community. So a hearty congratulations from the Living Force and Utini to Stardust. Very happy to have you in my bookmarks bar and can't wait for the content in the future. Couple other things. I want to say selfishly, guys, I had a very fun activity this weekend because Utini had its first ever fantasy football draft. It is that time of year for the nerds and football fans, small Venn diagram to celebrate our existence. So a shout out there to everyone involved in that. We all met in the sports channel, the Discord, then we made our own league. There's 10 of us. And as the year goes on, I will be updating you guys on how people are doing for the fans in that community and stuff. It was just a ton of fun. We jumped in a Discord channel and we're talking throughout the draft, giving each other crap. It was a great time. I see we got some people in the chat right now. Emma's there, Timothy's there, who are in the league. And I really hope I do well, or else I'll be really embarrassed. And finally, everyone, a little announcement that we didn't know about. This weekend, Target, yes, the store, launched a bunch of Galaxy's Edge merchandise because no one can really go to Disney right now like we used to because, the everything. But they got a lot of merch, figures, Funkos, and 2 Target editions of George Mann novels. That's right, folks. Myths and Fables and Dark Legends have Target exclusive editions, which, to be clear, are different from the Galaxy's Edge exclusive editions that are also maybe in the park soon. I don't know.
It's all very confusing, quite frankly.
It's a lot.
Yeah. It sounds like we were trying to deduce this earlier in the week, and it sounds like Target is, like you said, hosting Galaxy's Edge stuff, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And like they also, this is why it's confusing, is that there's also a Galaxy's Edge version of the Myths and Fables and Dark Legends books, but the Target edition that's hosting the Galaxy's Edge stuff is not the same as the Galaxy's Edge Myths and Fables and Dark Legends. So there's 3 versions, we think, of this book, which is very confusing.
That we know of.
Yes.
Yeah.
and some of them contain extra stuff, right?
Yeah, the Target editions all have extra stories, and I think that the Galaxy's Edge version, I believe, will have the most amount of extra stories. Target definitely has, I believe, 3 extra in Myths and Fables, and I'm not sure how many more in Dark Legends, but it is noticeably bigger. So if you want to get those, go to Target. That's it. We're not sponsored by them. I'm not giving them any more of our airtime.
If only there were like some kind of organization that could maybe clarify this stuff. Maybe somebody that was involved in like the printing or something like that of the book itself. I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, who am I to ask? Like,
I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not.
Oh, but aside from the glories of capitalism, I want to talk about some other things that happened this week. We had another very successful Utini Star Wars game night this week. Our very own Emma took some time away from the horrors that is being in college on Zoom to play some Battlefront 2. Emma absolutely killed it and killed many things, actually. Being in Battlefront 2 was a lot of fun. Emma, we love watching you play Battlefront. We met Emma actually on Battlefront, honestly. Came into the community, and then we played a bunch, so it was cool to see Emma go back to the roots that I know you from at least, so it was very fun. Hold on here. Checking the chat. We have an official update from Boski, who says the Target versions have 3 more stories in each. The Galaxy's Edge version has 6 more in each. Targets have all been cleared out, though, sadly. So if you find a Target with these extra George Mann books, pick them up.
They'll probably be on eBay at some point. I wonder if the Galaxy's Edge has the Target ones.
I don't know.
It's a good question.
Maybe.
I'm not sure either.
But we'll find out.
Yeah, Emma totally rocked it on Star Wars Night this week. Like, it was super fun to watch. Emma is like a beast at Battlefront, so
it's so great. It's so great watching them in her element. And this coming week, I believe on September 4th, which I want to say is Friday, we're changing up the night, our very own Andrew, who really helps out with a lot of the book review database things in the site. Great dude is going to be playing an old school classic, Empire at War. Did you guys play that game?
I played the crap out of that game, actually, growing up. Like, it was the Star Wars Empire at War is how I figured out how to mod games. So it's like very much involved in like my deep my deep dive into becoming a computer nerd.
Wow.
Get the hell out!
I'm such a nerd.
Such a nerd.
What kind of mod did you make? Was it just like armies of Corran Horn?
So yes, armies of Corran Horn. I figured out that you could like go into the game settings and stuff and like change like certain lines of code to give you like increased unit caps and stuff. Like that game, one of the big criticisms of the game is like on the ground wars, like there's like a unit cap of like 20 people, which is kind of dumb because like a little squad takes up like 5 people, right? So I used to increase it to like 300 so you could have huge battles and stuff that was a little more realistic. So it was fun.
Nice.
It's a
yeah,
good
looking
game.
at the chat here, we got Patrick Ortiz, our buddy PJ Turtle says he likes the Republic at War mod as well.
Yes.
So you got a fellow modder here.
Now that community, I was actually looking at this week, that the modding community for that game is still super, super active, which is crazy.
Andrew's gonna be playing with some, I believe, as
Right.
well.
Yeah,
He was
there's
telling
a
us in
bunch of them.
Discord.
Yeah, they got a really big remastered mod. I think last year they announced it, and it's like the game's old. It's like from 2006 or something like that, and somebody gave it like a 4K mod, so it looks really nice and updated. And I played it for like 20 minutes earlier in this week when I was helping Andrew with some stuff, and it's got replay value. It brings back some memories, so I'm excited to see Andrew dive into that.
Absolutely. So that will, again, be on this very channel, twitch.tv/UTini_US on Friday evening, September 4th at, I believe, 7 p.m. Eastern. We will be posting on the Twitters a bunch. And speaking of things that are coming up this week, on Saturday, Conja Book Club, which if you haven't been following along, is technically our newest show, featuring Adam and Timothy and Patrick, are going to be starting a new book, everyone. They just finished up Revenge of the Sith, the novelization, which we all love so much, by Matthew Stover. If you haven't been able to follow along in the Discord live show, we do release those on Patreon, so I highly recommend you follow along with those. But this Saturday, they will be starting the new book. Again, this is where they split a book up into 4 weeks. It's a very traditional book club format. You read a couple chapters, you listen to the show, you read some chapters, you listen to the show. This Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, they are starting Bloodline by Claudia Gray. A new classic, I'd say, right, guys? I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I think so. I really enjoyed the
that
political discussion a week or two ago with the guests we had on. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely go check them out on the Conja Book Club. Even if you haven't made a deal with Conja Book Club, it doesn't matter. Corey, can I throw it to you now, please? Because now that we are starting September, we have a ton of updates to our Patreon. What is changing? What new stuff is coming? What do we got?
Yes. So we've hinted at this a little bit over the last couple of weeks that we're majorly updating our Patreon tiers. And we actually brought Timothy on board, which you guys saw a couple weeks ago as the Patron of the Week. We brought him on board to the Utini team. He's particularly well equipped because he's been a patron for a long time, and like I really wanted sort of an inside look, and I sort of pitched it to him like, hey, do you want to come on the team and maybe help us improve our Patreon a little bit? And man, he's been crazy busy, hard at work, like updating the tiers, like coming up with new show ideas. Like Conja Book Club was one of his ideas, like really fantastic stuff, and Tim's done incredible work behind the scenes, and we're finally ready to launch like 2 months worth of work on our Patreon tiers. So we have a couple new tiers that I'm just going to walk you through really quick. Wes, if you want to throw up that screen share scene, we can kind of walk through these really quick. Basically, we took our existing tiers and adapted them just a little bit. So we previously had a $1 tier. It was not very popular, really didn't have much in it that was being well utilized. So we actually got rid of that one. Now we just have the Guardian of the Wheels, the $5 tier. This is by far the most popular tier we have on Patreon, and this gives you like I think the biggest bang for your buck. So if you've ever considered being a patron of our Patreon, it's so hard to say, I can never get used to that. If you ever considered joining our Patreon, like the $5 tier is probably the best bang for your buck, just because you get a bunch of bonus shows.
Yeah, that's great business strategy. Great business strategy right there. Guys, if you want the best value, give us the least amount of money. That's really where you want to aim. Everything else is a ripoff.
Oh, don't worry. We're going to upsell the crap out of the next couple tiers, right? So if you join the Guardians of the Will, just like always, you get all the bonus shows. Well, most of the bonus shows that we have. Like Eric and Charlie do a Ghost Crew show where they go through Rebels every week. We have Conja Book Club, which you can actually catch live on Discord, but we do a recording of it and turn it into a podcast and stuff. That's on Patreon. Legends Look Back is still featured as a Patreon show, even though it is live on our Twitch now. Bounty Hunt is a show that the three of us, Eric, Charles, and I, have all done a couple times. A bunch of times whenever new content is coming out. That is currently on hold, probably until The Mandalorian comes out. And then Lightspeed Skipping is a super fun show we put together. So you get multiple shows a week if you join this tier, and a couple other small perks as well. Going up through the other tiers really where the biggest change occurred. Some new things for the $10 tier. We're being better about using the Night at the Opera, which is when we get together and do some kind of watch party. I've been doing a new show called The Wayfinder, which is just I give a sort of behind-the-scenes look at Utini and kind of what's going on in the business side of things. We're also getting some behind-the-scenes looks from our team. And then the next two tiers, the Alliance High Command and then the Jedi High Council, these are both the 2.0, and these saw the biggest change, I think, of any tier, right? So if you join the $30 tier or the $50 tier, you get a lot of new merch stuff. So the $30 tier would get you like exclusive access to merch before it goes live to the public. That's going to be in the Alliance High Command, and as well as the Jedi High Council. The biggest change we've added to this is not only are you going to get like exclusive access to merch ahead of time, you're going to get like a free T-shirt every single month. So we're going to give you a big welcome bundle, a shirt, a mug, and a hoodie when you first join, and then you will get a new T-shirt. Like that's going to be a new exclusive shirt every single month. As well as a 25% discount off of everything in our merch store. And that's the staff discount. That's what we give to all the Utini staff members, is the 25% off, which is basically completely eliminates our profit from that. So we're basically giving it to you at cost, right? So we get a lot of really big stuff if you join this highest tier. I mean, $50 a month is a huge chunk of change. We fully realize that. But like we consider you like basically on the board of directors at Utini if you join the High Council. I mean, we really try to communicate with those folks pretty often about what they want to see. We talk to them a lot in Aftermath about what they want to see. And we try to make sure that this tier has really got a lot of value in it. So those are the new big changes. I know it's a lot of technical information. You can check those out at patreon.com/Utini and see all the new tiers. But Tim has been hard at work at that, and I really appreciate his help there as well.
Absolutely. Tim has been just so incredible putting all that together, and I'm so glad to finally push it out. And stay tuned. Next week, we will be announcing new Patreon goals, including roundtables, film commentaries, and more. So stay tuned. We like to create stuff. Are all of our lives getting way busier? Absolutely. Does that mean we will stop finding time in the middle of the night to make Star Wars content for you? It does not. So we'll see what happens going forward. And like we said, just as a reminder, in the Patreon feed right now, you're going to find Conja Book Club. You can find Lightspeed Skipping, Bounty Hunt, where Heather, our very own Heather Goldman, just put up the first Bounty Hunt episode in a few months, where she interviewed Dominic Pace, who played a bounty hunter in The Mandalorian. So Heather went out and got that interview. It's a really great listen to a person that has been in the same space as Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. It's great. So definitely stay tuned for that. Charles, we want to highlight someone, do we not?
We do. Am I on? Is this
You're
the
on,
moment? Is this thing on?
This is it. This is it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the patron of the week. I give you
Oh my God, I was
Ross
waiting for the
Orlando.
patron of the week. Sorry, say it again. I messed
Hey
up.
everyone, my name is Ross Orlando, and I've been asked to be patron of the week and answer a few questions that Timothy sent over. So, like I said, my name is Ross Orlando. I'm originally from Kansas. Now I live in the greater Boston area. I got into Star Wars through my mom. My mom doesn't like sci-fi or fantasy or anything really. She's kind of a true crime person. But Star Wars was the one thing that the one piece of sci-fi slash fantasy that she ever really got into. And she instilled that into me at a pretty early age. I grew up watching the original trilogy on repeat until the prequel trilogy came out when I was pretty young. Liked those a lot. Didn't like Attack the Clones all that much even when I was little, but I've come to appreciate the good things about the prequel trilogy, and which is why Revenge of the Sith is actually my favorite movie out of the entire saga. In terms of my favorite Star Wars kind of expanded universe piece of media, it's a broken record for a lot of people, but it's Lost Stars. I was pretty blown away by it. Picking it up, I heard it was a YA book, so I thought it would skew a little younger in terms of writing style and story than what I would be typically expecting, but fell in love with it. I thought it was masterfully... I think Claudia Gray did a masterful job of kind of weaving these new characters and this new story into existing events that we've already been familiar with in a really cool way. In terms of why I joined Utini, originally I was looking for some sort of reading list, some sort of canon reading list or timeline, and I wanted to start reading the books in chronological order. And that's how I found Utini and kind of got involved with the Discord pretty quickly and listened to the podcast and just kind of dove in, and it's been great. I feel like recently, whenever I've been tweeting or posting, I've been having the preamble of not as involved as I'd like to be in the community, but, and that's definitely true. It's funny, with everything going on, work has become more busy than it was before everything started happening. But I've been happy to be a patron ever since, and happy to continue to be. In terms of what I'm looking forward to most coming up in Star Wars, it has to be the Kenobi series, especially if they base it off of John Jackson Miller's book. Be super pumped. But you can. A lot of people can say a lot of things about the prequel trilogy. We're all familiar with most of them at this point. But Ewan McGregor was always the shining beacon in the prequel trilogy. He's just quality from start to back, so I'm really happy they got him back for the series, and I can't wait to see it. In terms of questions for the hosts, Eric, how do you think the Cowboys are going to do this year, and why do you think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl again? Other than that, my social media handle for Twitter is RPOrlando91. On PlayStation and Xbox, it's the same thing. So thanks for letting me be Patron of the Week, and keep up the great work, guys.
Oh, man. Okay. The best question has been asked. You all can stay home. That's fine. So, Ross, to answer your lovely Patron of the Week questions, I think the Cowboys are going to win the division. I think they're going to have the third best offense in football behind the Chiefs and the Ravens. And I think that there is a definitely decent chance that they play your Chiefs in the Super Bowl and probably lose. And you know why? It's because Patrick Mahomes is the most exciting quarterback in the history of the NFL. I love him dearly, despite not being from Kansas City. And I will admit that. I loved the Super Bowl last year. I do have a Mahomes jersey. Bless them all. So that being said, Cowboys fan for life. And Dak is my boy. Zeke's my boy. I have Amari Cooper on both my fantasy teams. And now I'll stop talking about football. Thank you for giving me an excuse to talk about my two favorite things, Star Wars and football, in the same podcast. Guys, it's Christmas. It's Chismas. Thank you very much. Now, Corey, I will stop my Christmas. Can you tell me one thing that we have forgotten to plug quite a bit on our YouTube show that is featuring one of the dearest team members to our hearts, Matt Davenport? I am wearing it. If we want to, yeah, this new Thrawn shirt just in time for the release of the new book, which I have right here. I freaking love this shirt, Jose. Oh my god, I love the color pop.
Yeah. And fun fact, that's Corey's eye. That is actually Corey's eye. That we
It
know
might
of.
be true. Well, very possibly. Real quick, I'm gonna take the mic away for just a moment because Corey, apparently people can't hear you. You might be muted on the thing. So double check that while I vamp for just a quick second.
I fixed it now. You're right. It was not. It was not there. So I basically just talked about Cantina Comics for 5 minutes and nobody heard it. Should I go back through that really quick?
Yes, you
yeah,
should.
Okay.
yeah. Let's go back through
Probably
it.
do. Probably
Hey,
do.
everyone.
Sorry, guys. I'm a moron. And apparently I must have hit a button there. So now you can hear me, I assume. There's gonna be a bit of a delay with the chat, so hopefully they can hear me. But I see the little bar moving now, so that means it probably is. I think I'm the only person that ever gets muted on the show. By the way, does anybody else realize?
Oh yeah,
that?
I don't know how to mute myself.
Yes, I
don't know. What you see is what you get.
apparently that's how it is. All right,
I've been muted for a whole show before.
That's true. But that was a long time ago. We were you know.
Infants.
Infants there. Okay,
So
backing
tell us about
up.
Cantina of Comics.
All right, backing up. Matt, I'm sorry you have to edit us out talking about you. Let me try to do a better job. You know what? When you're editing the podcast, Matt, like whatever take is better, just use that one. All right, it's probably gonna be the first one because I never do as good of a job the second time around.
Let's be honest. This is all gonna stay in.
That's probably true. Just do it twice. Matt's gonna leave the edit of us talking about him twice. That's probably what's gonna happen. All right, backing up. What you guys missed in my muted monologue. Now I'm seeing all the messages in Slack from everybody. I'm seeing them in the chat. You know, I should probably pay attention to this stuff instead of looking at the camera while I'm talking about this. All right, backing up. A couple UTN updates. The biggest of which is we have a cool new YouTube show that Matt Davenport, the lovely Matt Davenport, as I think I said, him and his wife have been putting together for a couple weeks now. And it's called Cantina of Comics. So on our YouTube channel, you can find this. Matt is really into the comics. And every single week, him and his wife are making a cool mixed drink, which they demo on the show itself, and then talk about some comics, which is pretty fun. So I think Matt has been he's been behind the scenes for a long time. He's been doing a lot of really cool work with the podcast, and it's fun to finally see his face. Now, this project was a total surprise to all of us when we launched our YouTube channel. I just received basically a completed video in my inbox in Slack and was like, "Hey, I created this new thing. You guys want to put it on the YouTube channel?" And we're like, yeah, we do.
Yeah. Oh, it's written, produced, edited, and ready to go? Uh-huh.
Yes,
We'll
absolutely. Absolutely. It's really, really good. It's been a lot of fun. I think he has at least 3 episodes filmed. I think 2 have been released on our YouTube channel, so you can check that out. So just go to YouTube and search for Utini. Make sure you smash that like and subscribe button if you haven't already.
Yeah, there we go. And I want to say, before you get into the next thing, a quick shout out to the video team. We don't go over every single video now because there are frankly too many for us to recap every week, because the video team has been so hard at work pumping out content, guys, reviews, all that stuff. That is not stopped. That is continuing. I am in awe of the work that you all are doing every single week. Jake, Emma, Nathan, everyone behind the scenes, everyone that is giving written content for those video people to do. I love it. I love you all. It's great. The end. Corey, continue with what you were saying.
Yes, you guys probably kind of figured this out already, but the other update I was giving is we have a couple new pieces of merch out that we actually highlighted a couple weeks ago. The new Thrawn, the new Mustafar, and the new retro shirt for Legends Look Back that we all have out. Eric, you are wearing the Thrawn shirt, which we released in honor of the new Thrawn book, which looks fantastic. That is not my eye, as the joke was made a moment ago. My eyebrows are not that bushy. And that's that.
Yeah,
but we are running a promo right now. If you want 15% off, you can use the code Thrawn15, THRAWN 15, and that give you 15% off in the entire merch store if you want to pick up that sweet, sweet Thrawn book. It looks fantastic.
Absolutely. Because what better way, honestly, to spend the week of a new Thrawn book than by getting some sweet Thrawn merch. Again, Thrawn15 is that code. Very excited for that. And if you were, like we said earlier, in one of those bigger Patreon levels, you would have gotten access to this a little early. So just a little incentive to go along with that. All right, a little bit of book release news. As we said, tomorrow is the big day that we've all been waiting for so long. Thrawn Ascendancy Chaos Rising is officially released. This is going to be one people are talking about for a while. I can guarantee it. If you're watching us live tonight, be ready, everyone. My written review goes live tomorrow, and a video review will be coming this week as well. I can't wait to hear what you all think about the book. As soon as you're done with it, make sure you head over to that book profile on Utini and add your star rating. Ooh, new Thrawn. Very excited. And then we get a little break. We get a little bit of a break until November 10th, where we get, from a certain point of view, Empire Strikes Back. But guys, I'm okay with having a little bit of a break with Star Wars releases. What do you think?
Yes. Yes. We had to smash two kind of small roundtables into one episode here. So, we need a break.
I'm exhausted.
No
I'm going to be honest.
Wow. All right, this is part of the show. We are all tired. It's been a week for everyone. But that won't stop us because we want to talk about some books that you all have been reading. Charles, can you talk about some book reviews we got lately at utini.com?
Yeah. I mean, we have these things roll in all the time, and it's always fun to take a minute to pause, look back at a few of them, and see what people have been reading recently, whether it's the new stuff or whether it's some old stuff. So we got a few we want to highlight this week. The first one comes to us from Adam T, and he is reviewing Dr. Aphra, an audiobook original by Sarah Q, and he gave it 5 stars. And he said, after the success of the Dooku Jedi Lost, that's right, that's how I refer to it too.
It's like Ohio State.
the Dooku Jedi Lost. Absolutely. I wasn't certain that the follow-up audio drama would be able to match the quality and excitement, but I was 100% wrong. In fact, I would say Dr. Aphra surpasses Dooku Jedi Lost. Having only read the first 2 Aphra comics, I came into this with a relatively clean slate in terms of knowing the general storyline and the characters involved, which I believe only enhanced the experience. The storyline was enthralling and had me wanting more. As always, the droids are a high point, and I love the feeling that you could never quite trust Aphra's version of events. Overall, another fantastic audio drama that has me begging for another. So thank you, Adam T. We agree. Go listen to our roundtable where we chat all about that if you haven't heard it yet. Eric, do you want to take the next one?
I would love to. Going right into another book that we are actually going to talk about tonight. We have Lando reviewing Dark Legends by George Mann, giving this book 5 stars. Here, let me grab it behind me here, holding this pretty little guy. And he says the following. I have yet to read Mann's Myths and Fables, as I am waiting for the Galaxy's Edge exclusive version. Fair enough. However, I could not wait for any potential exclusives of this book, as the excitement for scary Star Wars stories was too much to fight back. I love this little book of creepy stories. I love anthologies, so an anthology is some creepy and dark stories that don't require much previous knowledge or a lot of effort to dig into and understand was a no-brainer to me. What's most fascinating to me about this book are some of the new perspectives on how we get of other characters and places that we haven't considered yet. One story captures the paranoia of an Imperial officer who could at any minute upset Lord Vader and be choked to death. Another story tells us more about the mysterious Exegol that we saw in The Rise of Skywalker. I appreciate that Mann turned to classic films and stories as inspiration for some of these. It was fun reading and trying to identify if the story lines up with any classics I knew of, and was either pleasantly surprised at the twist I didn't see coming, or was able to revel in the ability to exclaim, "I knew it!" when I was correct. I can totally see myself reading this on Halloween nights to future children, hopefully creating some good memories to share. Absolutely. We are obviously huge fans of George Mann himself. We can at least just start there. We have interviewed him now twice on the show. If you haven't listened to either one of our chats, definitely go back and listen to those. Charles, loveliest man in Star Wars? Easily?
I think so. Loveliest man in Star Wars, like with 2 N's. That's not even up for debate. But with 1 N, it's also debatable. He's a great guy. So great review. We do have a third one from Mr. Rob Neese, Corey, or Wes. How about Wes? Wes never reads our reviews.
I'll read
Wes,
it.
you want to read this review from Rob Neese?
I'll do it. Rob Neese, I hope you don't spoil the book for me because I'm almost done. So Rob read Poe Dameron, Freefall by Alex Segura. He gave 3 stars. So the title is Free Flying and Falling for the Wrong Gal. Some Star Wars books hit you in the feels, like Lost Stars. Some deepen our understanding of the saga, Revenge of the Sith. And some come out of nowhere to take you on an unexpected adventure, Most Wanted. This one touches on elements of all three of the above without really committing to any of them. I enjoyed reading it, to be sure, but on the whole, I don't feel it will merit a reread anytime soon, or ever. Poe is much younger in this book. In fact, I don't think he's even turned 17 yet by the end, so it's hard to judge his actions like he would a grown adult. He does have some silly things, like the Yavin 4 equivalent of running away to join the circus by just kind of haphazardly joining a criminal syndicate as one does. One of the more interesting things that this development enables is making his primary adversary for a healthy chunk of the book an officer of the New Republic Security Bureau, who we're programmed to think of as the good guys, who just happens to have an agenda of her own involving elaborate plans of vengeance against the feared spice runners of Kijimi. Speaking of those criminals, it turns out their operation and Zori's role in it is considerably larger than the perfunctory mentions in the Rise of Skywalker film might have one believe. But at least we learn what the deal was with that helmet, I guess. All told, it was fun, short read, and I wouldn't mind reading more of Dameron's high-flying adventures in the future. Just not the book.
All right.
Well, thank you, Rob, for that. I'm almost done with it. I would say right now I give it 4 stars compared to your 3, but I'm kind of I'm on your wavelength, man. I'm on your wavelength.
Nice. Yeah, Poe Dameron Freefall, actually, just to round this all out, I believe we are doing our Poe Dameron Freefall roundtable next week, if I am correct. Am I correct? I'm looking at the schedule. I should have checked it earlier, but I didn't. Yes, my friends, it looks like no one's going to sing with me. That's fine. Yeah, next week we're going to do our first episode of our Poe Dameron Freefall Roundtable, so a little tease for that. You'll see if we agree with Wes's review, if we agree with Rob's review. But thank you, Rob, regardless. All right. If you want to add your own reviews to the books you love and you want us to read them on this show, look up that book on utini.com. Leave a star rating and a user review at the bottom of the page, and we'll see what we can do. Now, we are going to take a quick break, show you a lovely little merch ad for a few seconds, and we will be back to talk about some anthologies in the Star Wars. See you in a sec. All right. Oh, and we are back. Oh, those little lo-fi sultry beats, never get tired of them. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Corey, Charles, Wes, are you back with me? Are we here?
Yeah.
Are we together?
We're here. We're ready to party. Ready to party.
Oh, we're at a party. All right, well, we are partying.
Party.
Wow. I'm sorry, everyone. I didn't know Charles didn't party. I'm sorry. I apologize on behalf of the Living Force. But we are here to party like all the cool kids do with books. That's right.
Books.
We are here talking tonight about anthology books because in the past couple months, we have gotten 2 very notable anthologies, including the aforementioned Dark Legends by George Mann and Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Stories of Light and Dark by some various authors. So what we want to do tonight in this little main segment. Also, hello, Cheryl. Cheryl just jumped in. Hi. Always love seeing you. We're going to go through each book, not do a huge roundtable on them, but we're going to discuss maybe some of the stories that we liked, maybe discuss why we liked them, why we didn't like them, and kind of what place anthologies have in Star Wars. Does that sound okay, guys? Does that sound like a fun way to spend your Monday evening?
What if we said no, Eric?
Well, then Wes would put the 3 of us in a separate screen and he would go away.
Excellent.
But to start out, guys.
See you, Corey.
Oh, visual humor for our audio friends. That happened. So I want to go around the horn first and just ask you guys straight out, which one did you prefer out of Dark Legends and Clone Wars? For our friends that didn't read them, as we said in the review section, Dark Legends is George Mann writing a bunch of horror stories in Star Wars. that may or may not be canon, depending on your thoughts about that. And Clone Wars Stories of Light and Dark were a bunch of authors writing singular stories from the Clone Wars in their own voice. So, Corey, I'm going to start with you. Which of these two did you find yourself enjoying more as you read?
Well, I definitely like, spoiler alert, I have not finished either one. Like, I got through a little bit of both of them, but I didn't actually finish either one. And I don't think I actually finished Mann's first book either. I just didn't quite get through all the way through it. It's such a short read. Like, it's easy to read, like, one chapter and then kind of put it down. But I didn't finish either one of these. But in general, I definitely preferred the Dark Legends, I think, to the Clone Wars Stories of Light and Dark. Like, one of the small pieces of criticism I think that the Clone Wars book has gotten has been that there's not a lot of original content in there. There is a good deal of kind of virtually word for word Clone Wars episodes, which, if you've seen it a couple times, like most of us have, then, it's kind of like, oh, all right, did this really need to be a book? Kind of, in a lot of ways. So, but Mann is fantastic. I'm a big fan of his work in general. I like Dark Legends a lot.
All right. Charles, what do you think? You going to jump on the Mann train again, or do you have a little more love for Clone Wars?
Jump on the Man
train.
Jump on the Man train.
So
That's right.
This is tearing me apart because only one of these books has Kenobi in it, and it's not Dark Legends. But I'm still going to pick Dark Legends because it's brand new content and it's just fun. Like it's not the typical type of stories that we're going to get. So I enjoyed some of those and I know we're going to get into them, but I still really loved Tales of Light and Dark as well. I had a great time with that book. I think a better time than I was expecting to, but I'm going to give it to Dark Legends.
I always love that when you can kind of subvert expectations in a cool way like that. So I hear what you're saying. Wes, how about you, man? Round us out.
I'm going to have to pick Dark Legends. I guess that's 3 out of maybe all 4 of us pick Dark Legends. I like how they go into detail about the characters, but they don't actually name the character on some of these stories, which is great because it's kind of like a hidden secret if you know who they're talking about. But I like. I can't wait to open Star Wars Clone Wars Tales from Light and Dark. It looks like a great cover. It's hefty. They got big font. I like that. So, but I have to give the nod to Dark Legends.
It is beautifully designed. I'm not gonna lie. I'll end here. I will also say I did like Dark Legends on the whole more, but I think for me, the Clone Wars Stories of Light and Dark maybe had a few higher highs. From a couple specific authors that I will touch on later on. And I like that idea because in a lot of anthologies, when you have multiple authors, the quality can vary depending. And if you like George Mann, you're pretty much in a nice, warm, solid, a warm, solid line throughout the whole bit. Like it's George Mann writing stories and he's a great storyteller. So you're pretty good at it. But yeah, so we'll get into that.
Quick question. Yeah, sorry. Quick question, Eric. Like, so these books are both very interesting. We actually even had to break up sort of our normal review format for both of these books because they're so different and kind of weird. They're not like typical normal age group books. So that's kind of my question is like, what is the age group that you would formally put these both in? I know what age group they are in, like by definition, but do you think that they fit those age groups or is it like Mann's book seems a little more adult to me than I think it was originally intentioned.
I would put them both probably in middle grade novel, technically. Because I think that Mann's definitely read, like he says a lot when we talk to him, as like grim stories, like grim fairy tales.
Right.
That are dark and definitely have mature elements, but can be read to children. And I think the Clone Wars Stories of Light and Dark is similar in its writing style, that it can appeal to children. And I think some authors are more successful in that than others. So I think that's a great question. I think that's also very interesting. Now, looking at Dark Legends, let's start off with that one. I'm gonna grab it again. The smallest, literal, shortest Star Wars book that I own, as far as its actual cover says. Did any of you guys? I'm just gonna open this up. Have a particular favorite story in this collection? Because there were a few cool ones, like we said in the earlier review. We had one with Exegol. We had some Darth Kaldoth came back. We had a Grand Inquisitor story. Did any of these jump out to you guys specifically?
It's funny. I think that you just mentioned probably my top 3 favorite ones. Like, There's a reason that those ones stood. I mean, Kaldoff, it's just great to get him back. The Exegol story was so unexpected for me, though. Both like getting a story on Exegol, but also the story itself has a fantastic twist that I bet a lot of people don't see coming. So that's up there. And then the Grand Inquisitor story, man, if that was not just the perfect parallel to Nosferatu, I mean, it couldn't have been any more perfect than that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll jump right in. I'm gonna agree with you. There's a reason why I mentioned those ones first. The stories mentioned specifically were the Gilded Cage and A Life Immortal were my two favorites, which fittingly are the last two in the book, which I think is really fun. I think that's a great way to kind of compose a book, with the Grand Inquisitor story being the orphanage as the first one. And I really liked those because, I mean, one, we talk about this when we were saying which one we liked better. They're so original for man. Like, these are actually the ones that don't involve characters from the saga. Other than the Grand Inquisitor one, the last two are Darth Kaldoth, a character that man created in Myths and Fables, and the other one is completely original characters, only using a setting that we know from Exegol. So, guys, I want to ask you, do you guys prefer with anthology stories like Dark Legends, Clone Wars, from a certain point of view? Another great one, for example, the Tales of the Bounty Hunters, all these things. Do you guys like it when familiar characters show up? Or do you like it when it's kind of just all original people witnessing places that we know, like Exegol, like Tatooine?
The latter for sure for me. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about this on the show before, that like, you know, the reason I like the expanded universe is I like to expand on the films, to expand on the universe, right? So like, I much prefer stories that don't feature main characters, I think, to be honest. Like, I would much rather have a story about, you know, somebody who is in the booth next to Han Solo in the cantina, rather than about Han Solo and getting his own head, because we have tons and tons and tons of content that sort of features our main characters, right? So I kind of want to see behind the scenes.
All right, I like that. Wes, Charles, you guys agree that you want some new people looking at this thing with fresh eyes?
Yeah. Go ahead,
Wes.
Wes, you control the camera. Talk.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
that's right. I forgot about that. So, yeah, I would just like Corey said. It's like I like the backstory of the characters that make you want to read more into them, because we have movies and main novels and book titles of all these main characters, but yeah, what's going on behind the scenes? What's going on in that other booth? What's going on in that other starship? How did this person get there? And it kind of, we already have the foundation, so it seems, but we need to build up that trunk to make it blossom into a tree, you know?
Yeah, I love that idea. And I think one of the cool things too, speaking of like, you know, blossoming into something new, is that George Mann with Dark Legends, specifically with the Kaldoth story, got to build upon a mythology he had already started to build with Myths and Fables, right? And it's so rare that we get to see people do that outside an official trilogy, like Timothy Zahn or Chuck Wendig, or people that are actually given sequential novels. Anthologies are kind of unique like that. And I think the coolest stories that we see are ones that pick up obscure characters from other fiction and give them their next chapter when we never thought we would get one, you know? Like, I think getting a cool Obi-Wan homage is really great, but it's like, oh my gosh, that background character from Tales of the Cantina is also in Tales of the Bounty Hunter or something. Like, that's like quintessential expanded universe to me, like you were saying, Corey. I think that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, huge fan of that. Now, I want to ask you guys one more thing about Dark Legends specifically, before we get to Clone Wars and then comparing the two a bit more. Comparing this to Myths and Fables, Charles, I want to throw this to you as someone who loves man's work, especially as much as I do. Do you think Dark Legends works better than Myths and Fables? Do you like Myths and Fables a little better, or do you think it's hard to compare the two?
So I think that they're definitely comparable. I think that this might be a weird thought, but what strikes me is that as Americans, I think Dark Legends works better. And the reason is, we don't have like the rich history necessarily of like Greek mythology, right? Where we tell like a whole bunch of folklore. Like, I feel like our heritage is kind of like sitting around a campfire telling ghost stories. And that's what these are, is, you know, they're taking the spooky things, the scary things. And I think the other thing that makes it work is a lot of times it's the stuff that freaks us out that we don't understand, that we build kind of this lore around. And that's what these stories are. I mean, like the Grand Inquisitor, you know, creeping in the window of an orphanage and stealing kids out of there. Did he do that? I don't know, but he definitely could have, and I'm scared of him, and I haven't slept for a week.
Yeah. I mean, hey, is there anything more American than being terrified of the entire world and not knowing what's going to happen day to day? I don't think so. So I agree that I think Dark Legends is more successful thematically in that way because it sticks to like all the scary things. But I am going to say for me, I think I like the Myths and Fables just a bit more because of the variants, which I think is interesting. Like, I think that I like certain books if the tone is consistent throughout the whole, but Myths and Fables for me, how it went kind of more, this is filled with hope, this is filled with dread, this is filled with hope, this is filled with dread. I like that roller coaster, and I think Dark Legends definitely hits that as well. But knowing that they're all supposed to be horror kind of makes you drive in a little more of a straight path. But regardless, let us all say, I mean, give us more. Yeah. Let's be clear.
Yeah, totally. So the one point I was going to make in regards to that is like, I think it was a clever decision to put the word legends in the title, right? Mm-hmm. Because you know,
right, Jared?
Yes, that's right. Did someone say legends?
Legends.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's been kind of one of the weird things is like people have, you know, when they did the Disney purchase and they did the clarification that everything that's come before is going to be titled Legends, and there's always a little truth in Legends that gets thrown around a lot, and like, I don't really look at Legends stuff like Legends. Like, I certainly don't look at Legends like this, like Dark Legends looks at Legends. Like, do you guys? Like, it seems to be a little more true in a lot of ways. And so, I don't know. It
depends on the book. Like,
it's a thematic thing, right?
Yeah. Like, I've just started reading the New Jedi Order recently for the first time. I'm on Vector Prime. I'm digging it. But I know for a fact that Jaina and Jason Solo don't exist in the canon. Totally fair.
Right.
Whereas, like,
this is like mythical, though, right? Like, this is like totally different. Like, and
exactly.
The point I was gonna make is like, I really like this theme in these books in general, Myths and Fables and Dark Legends, is like, it allows a little bit more of sort of meta storytelling that is a little more like legitimately Legends in Star Wars, which I think is a lot of fun. Like, it's like a level of, it's like taking, like you said, Charles, it's like taking Greek mythology and putting it, you know, in the format of Star Wars, which is a lot of fun. Like, to think about things mythically in a lot of ways, because George Lucas was inspired by those things. Like, that's what Star Wars sort of originated from, is that sort of classic storytelling, fable, opera sort of style. Structure. Yes, exactly. So I like this idea a lot. And do you guys think it's going to continue? I want to see it continue, but
I think it will, unless they put out any more freaking Target or Galaxy's Edge editions, because they're going to add 12 stories to this thing by the end of the year.
Exactly.
Yeah, I definitely think we will. I think that having these as like guideposts, like one a year, maybe, like, here's another little bit of short story thing for the kids and the adults. Like, just feed them to us little by little. And I think that anthology books are really good for that, frankly.
Totally. These stories, like, they stick out to me a lot. Like, they're like ingrained in my memory. Like, the dragon story in Myths and Fables is like, that is in my head, man. Like, I frequently think about it. Like, it comes up and like, I'm just like, I can't forget it. It's weird that stuck to me, but I cannot remember details from things like Bloodline or Lost Stars unless I go back and read it again. But something about this storytelling format just has like lasting value, which I find a lot of fun, quite frankly.
Yeah. So Boski just put in the chat, I can't wait to get the Bass Pro Shop version of Myths and Fables in 2023.
Accurate.
For real. Like, but I think I'm going to say, let's see what happens in the next couple of years. Are we going to get like Myths of the High Republic? That'd be something really cool. I think.
That would be fun.
Let them play in that sandbox, huh?
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So, and after we have read those books, it's fun to flip back to the books that you've already read. You're like, that seems familiar. I'm gonna go back to my library and start flipping through. It's like, that's where it is. That's where I read about Darth Kaldov. So when I first read that story in Dark Legends, I was like, because I hadn't read it for the other book come out like 8 months prior to that.
Something like
so
that, yeah.
I pulled it out and I was like, makes sense now. This all makes sense. So I reread it.
Which is great. And that's honestly, that's how the Jedi were talked about. Like in universe, we hear about it's legends and stories, and it's this kind of dialogue. So I think that it kind of makes us part of the Star Wars universe in a fun way. Now, going to a more literal version of storytelling with Clone Wars Stories of Light and Dark, which I'll grab from behind me right here, which just came out last week. This is obviously an anthology book, but it's very different because this is retellings of stories from the Clone Wars. And y'all, we all said we like Dark Legends a little bit more than this. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that's because, this isn't necessarily quote unquote original content. Yes, it's storytelling in a new point of way, but it's kind of like a novelization in a way. It's like a novelization of the Clone Wars. And I want to ask you guys on that note, because it's a novelization approach with a bunch of different authors, how did that affect your reading? Like, did you find that certain stories kind of grabbed you? Did you find that with certain ones you got 2 or 3 pages in and you're like, all right, I get it, they're not adding a ton, and you moved on? Like, what was it like reading this book? Because it's kind of unique in that way. We haven't really seen anything like this before.
Well, I mean, I can certainly tell you I prefer to read the book before I see the movie, if that sort of tells you anything, right? Like, in fact, I even remember as a kid, like, a lot of times they would release, like, kids' version books of, like, movies like Spider-Man or something, and like, especially if it had screenshots from the film itself, like in the book with like dialogue from the script, I always like found that really tedious, quite frankly, personally.
Sure.
Like I'm like, I've already seen this. I don't need to see it in a book. If you're going to do it in a book, like you have to expand on it. Like we've talked about that in general with the sort of expanded editions, what they're calling the new novelizations of the films, right? Is like the expanded editions. And the books that we certainly prefer that are labeled expanded editions are books that do exactly that. They expand on the film. Like dialogue is slightly different. Like there's extra scenes. Like that stuff is really, really good. So some of the criticism that this book has received has been that, well, there are like straight up episodes that are stories in this book that are virtually not different at all from the Clone Wars. So, take that as you will. Like you have to take into account that this is targeted towards a certain audience, and maybe that's where the value comes from. But there was a lot of original stuff in the book too, and I certainly found those particular stories to be more interesting than the others.
Yeah, and I want to highlight a couple of those because there are some writers in here that do a great job with their stories, like some of our recent favorites, like Zoraida Cordova, author of Crash of Fate, is in here. She does an adventurous story that is called The Lost Night Sister. And then we have Rebecca Rowanhorse, who wrote Resistance Reborn, which we all freaking loved from last year. She did a Maul story called Dark Vengeance, all in the first person, which was to me probably the most gripping story in the whole collection. But then there's also a couple newcomers like Preeti Chibber, who is she's been a writer in the nerd world for quite a while. But their first Star Wars work, she did Hostage Crisis, which is that episode of the Clone Wars where Padme and Anakin get locked in the Senate building by Cad Bane. And we saw a lot of Padme's point of view of that episode, but she writes Anakin's point of view of the same episode. And I love that because that's what I really like when this book does. It's like, this plot, but the camera was focused here. So what if we tell you what was happening over here instead? And I think that's what made this really interesting. Same with Pursuit of Peace by Anne Ursu, which is another Padme story. Hilariously enough, like both the Padme stories I think are really, really great. And I think that's where they're able to shine. The authors that took that challenge and decided to say, okay, I've seen this episode. I know these characters. But what's interesting is not what Dave Filoni already made. What's interesting is not what I already saw on screen. What's interesting is what's going on behind all of this. And I think that, branching even off of that, the choice to bring some of the Clone Wars actors back to do the audiobook was such a great idea, because there's a reason that Rebecca Rowanhorse story, I liked reading it, but listening to Sam Witwer do that story was one of my favorite fictional moments of 2020. I mean, Charles, did you listen to the audio for this one as well?
Yeah, and I mean it is chilling. I think I've gone to the dark side here in my
you have man the video. Yeah, you have.
Here, guys, we're getting late. But Sam Witwer, his work as Maul is just absolutely incredible, and he did a fantastic job on this as well. And this is what's nice about having a canon, right? Is that everything is connected. We can get the same people back for multiple projects like this, and that one. And I'm gonna throw out my vote for Kenobi's Shadow as well.
Yeah, you want to tell everyone a bit what if you haven't read the book yet, which episodes does Kenobi's shadow cover? Because it's one of I know at least your favorite.
So it's the season 5 episode 16, The Lawless specifically. So it's basically talking about when Maul lured Kenobi back to Mandalore, and I'm not going to say what happens for those that maybe haven't watched the show or haven't read the book, but you should go and do that right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this book interesting because, like we were saying earlier, is this one I'm going to reread a ton? Probably not. I'm not going to revisit it as much as I want to. Maybe some others, but I can see myself kind of going back to some of these stories individually, which I think is the beauty of anthologies, right? Like I might throw on the Whitwer Maul as I'm working. I might throw on some James Arnold Taylor doing Kenobi with that last story if I want. Or honestly, I may, and I want to mention one last story here in this section, which is the last story, which is Bug, which is the only one that was actually not listed in the digital version of this book that went out to reviewers, hilariously enough. But it's by E. Ann Convery, and it's an original story featuring a child named Bug, and she encounters a Night Sister witch after the fall of Dathomir. And that's all I'm going to say if you haven't read it. But it's cool because it showed me, oh my gosh, this is how we can further Clone Wars past season 7. This is what we can do. We can get these books that have this feel of the series and bring in some mythological parts of it. But I think the anthology format can work really well for maybe future Clone Wars. What do you guys think about that idea? Like, because animation's going to go to Bad Batch. It's going to go to maybe another Rebel series. We're not maybe going to touch the Clone Wars era for a while. But could we get more anthology stuff, or would we want that? What do you think?
Absolutely I want more. I mean, look at how excited we got every time the Clone Wars came back, you know.
Right.
When season 6 came out on Netflix, then when we got season 7 that came out on Disney Plus, when this book came out, honestly I was excited. So give me more.
Yeah, I'm all about anthology books. Like, I think they have a certain value. Like, I don't think they necessarily have a lot, like the hard-hitting story points, like reread value that a lot of Star Wars books have, like some of the novels, like Thrawn and stuff like that. But like, I think that they have a sort of level of entertainment to them that really make it a lot of fun. That, you know, I almost wonder if some of the short story anthology books would be good first reads for people, like if you've never read a Star Wars book, because
Sure,
there's
yeah.
like there's short stories. They don't require a lot of commitments. They like they can at least kind of answer the question, do you want to explore the universe, right? Like I'm kind of imagining handing one of the old Legends books, like the Cantina book or something like that, to somebody for the first time. That might be a good first choice, actually. It's funny.
Yeah, and like this Clone Wars book, obviously, as a middle grade novel, it's also been talked about online as a book to kind of give to maybe either a younger kid or someone that maybe hasn't watched the Clone Wars yet or something like that, to kind of introduce them to this vibe, introduce them to this is what Star Wars can also be. So maybe like, you know, that books like that are geared towards people like that, if they love them, that's awesome. And it leads to one of our kind of core principles here at Udini, that even if a book isn't for you, it's not your favorite thing in the world, that's okay, because there is an audience that will love it, and that should be respected and loved as well, which we always try to uphold. Now, before we get on out of here, as we are about to do, this has been a lovely time. I love hanging with you guys. This week, I want to take a second to talk about the release that is next to me here. It is on my chest, on my shirt. It is something that we've been building to, honestly, for about a year now since its announcement. We're getting the first book of a new Thrawn trilogy. The four of us, have not been bashful about our less than vivid enthusiasm for the last Thrawn books. What are you guys looking forward to most about the next Thrawn book? I have read it. I will say now, by the time this publishes, it will be out. The embargo is up. It's my favorite Thrawn book I have ever read. So I am down with that.
Damn, that's high
for
praise.
the three of you
bro.
guys. It is, and as someone who didn't love treason a lot, but
Yes.
it blew my mind with this amount of stuff that Zahn was able to do. And you'll all read my review tomorrow. when you take the leash off Zahn and just let him go,
Yes, I
it's kind
think
of a magical thing.
that is absolutely the key. So I'm about 30% probably through the audiobook myself. Like my wife and I, we listened to it. She took an exam in Nashville, which is about a 4.5-hour ride. And we actually decided to make it a round trip just in the day. So like we listened to about 6 hours of the book, which is probably about 40% through it. It's a long, it's a long audiobook. And honestly, like from what little that we've gotten through so far, I can honestly back you up a lot, Eric. Like, you know, we said a lot that the second two Thrawn books in the quote unquote trilogy, the new canon trilogy that Thrawn did, like they felt like they were they kind of had, maybe Zahn was sort of felt cornered a little bit because he had to tie it into the Rebels TV show, and like it kind of looped back in and forth between that, and like it was a stark difference from the first Thrawn book, which you guys know I love. It's my top 5 canon books, and this book so far is equal, if not better, to the first Thrawn book, in my opinion. Like, it's strong. Like, it's strong original Thrawn. Like, I mean, you guys realize that he has to have been imagining what the Chiss Ascendancy is for, like, 25 years, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's like Game of Thrones Thrawn. Like it is
Yes.
it is families and politics and subterfuge and mythology and like
and
it's all the stuff that we thought about.
It all can't be like, there's no way that he just came up with all this just now either, right? Like it has to have been in his head, like at least
there's
somewhat.
a file cabinet.
Exactly. It was in his file
Somewhat.
cabinet, somehow formed in his mind for decades, which is really fun to consider. That Zahn is really credited with sort of kicking off this whole Star Wars Expanded Universe thing, and like the fact that he's finally talking about the origins of the Chiss Ascendancy is a lot of fun, quite frankly.
Yeah, it is gonna be great. Let's see, Charles, Wes, any thoughts?
And
I'm
just
just
to
excited for more Thrawn, man. Just more Thrawn. Bring it on.
read, I mean, just to clarify, this is an origin story, as you say, for Thrawn, right? So you have this book coming out tomorrow, I guess, hit my doorstep, and then there's the 3 Thrawn books that are canon that Zahn had Timothy Thrawn had written, and then there's the legends, right? And there's the legends that he had written back in the 90s.
Yes, the 90s.
Okay.
91, I think, was the first one. Is that correct?
Yeah, because the trilogy and then the Hand of Thrawn duology,
Yep.
technically, and all that jazz.
That's right. You know, speaking of this, I'm not sure. Do you guys follow Timothy Zahn on Facebook? This is a random question that I literally just thought of.
Yeah, because he's been sharing some really cool stuff.
Yes, so he's been doing these weird sort of posts lately, and he like titles them like memory, and he like recaps something of like his most like recap something about writing one of the Thrawn books. So you guys vamp for a second. I'll see if I can pull one of these up, because honestly, it's worth sharing because it's a lot of fun. Let me see if I can find one.
Yeah. Here, that's how we'll close out tonight's show. It's one of those memories, and it's a fun little writing exercise for Zahn, because the book of Thrawn Ascendancy Chaos Rising here. I'll put my blue pages here. For all you that are watching live, it does have the little blue borders and on every page. It's pretty cool.
So distinguished.
But the format of the book is the main story, and then every so often you'll get a memory chapter that will be earlier in Thrawn's life. So I think that's got to be. See if you'll see there. I'll cover up some text, but it's got this little thing that says memory on it, and it'll go through an earlier part of Thrawn's life. So I guarantee you, Zahn was like, "Oh, cool, I'll do that. I am Timothy Thrawn, so I will now go through my own memories and see what I can add." So Corey, were you able to find any of those while I was vamping masterfully?
And to you know, I'm like already excited to talk about Thrawn. I can't wait till when we do this. When is this book? Like, so we do it about 30 days after release. We do a roundtable about 30 days after release. Everybody's got plenty of time to read it and that sort of thing. So when are we doing? Do you happen to have the dates in front of you, Eric? When we're doing the
so I actually do. I have the roundtable dates. So the next 2 weeks are Poe Dameron Freefall. And then we have a couple weeks of just regular episodes. That's right, folks. We don't just do roundtables. But October 5th is our first Thrawn Ascendancy date.
Okay. It's exciting.
October 5th.
Yes, I'm already really excited to talk about this book. The memory format, like, absolutely works, Eric. I'm not sure if you agree, but like one of the big criticisms of a lot of Star Wars books have been when things go back and forth. Like what was the Han Solo book that people
Last Shot.
People were not a big fan of the way it went back and forth. The memory format is a beautiful way to do it, I think, because like the story ties directly into things that happen next, and it's it's Timothy Zahn at his finest. So anyway, I pulled up his Facebook thing. So this one's from August 29th. So he says, Memory, Thrawn. It says, a new era in Star Wars publishing was underway. Birds were singing, writers were writing, and all my agent could get from his nudgings of Tim's available to write new books was, yes, we know. Clearly, I was the old guard, as they had fresh new talent on the front. Which was fine. I'd written 10 novels and 19 short stories. That's crazy to think about, by the way.
Wild.
And if that was all I ever got to do in the Star Wars universe, I was content. I had my say. I was happy with what I'd been given and what I'd accomplished, and I can move on. Enter Star Wars Rebels. They flew me to San Francisco to drop the news on me that Thrawn would be the new featured villain in the 3rd season, and later also the 4th.
Could have been a phone call, but okay, fine. I get the drama.
All right. It says they flew me to San Francisco for the news to drop the news that Thrawn would be the featured villain in the 3rd season, and later also the 4th of the animated TV show. To say I was surprised, excited, and honored would be like saying the Pacific Ocean is wet. After the initial shock of that died down a bit, they told me they also wanted me to write a book detailing Thrawn's rise through the Imperial ranks to the point in the timeline where he entered the TV show. Thrawn was probably intended to be a standalone, but when the book sold out at the 2017 celebration, I was soon asked to do a follow-up. Tomorrow, Thrawn Alliances. So he's done these. You guys need to check this out. It's a page on Facebook. It's Timothy Zahn, his name of the page, and it's got a lot of cool stuff on it. But like he's been doing these like once a week or once every day or something, and he like highlights some memory of his publishing career, which is really, really cool to go back to the super old stuff, like in the 90s when he's talking about like how, like if you guys remember that episode with John Jackson Miller, like where he really went into like the nitty gritty of what the publishing world was like and how it was like kind of fly by the seat of your pants. Nobody knew what was going to happen. Like it's fun. It's really fun to hear his insight because like he's really been around since like the beginning. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for Timothy Zahn, and like I think this new book trilogy is like, I think people are already gonna laud it the way that they do like the original Thrawn trilogy.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going there. And also, if you want a little more insight and you're listening to this either on Thursday on the Patreon feed or Friday on the everywhere wide release, on Friday night, Timothy Zahn is doing like a live webinar type thing with Tom from Del Rey. And you can go, I believe, on the Del Rey Book Twitter is where I found it. I'm sure it's not hard to find. There's like a registration link where you can like basically sit in on their Zoom call, and Timothy Zahn will talk about publishing, and they'll talk about all kinds of Star Wars stuff. So if you want to start your weekend off with some Thrawn action, definitely go check that out. And of course, y'all, over at utini.com/Discord, we are going to have a channel all about Thrawn Ascendancy. I can't imagine how many messages there are going to be in there throughout this week.
Gosh, it's gonna be
go in there,
insane.
have some fun with some fellow Star Wars fans. I can't wait. But my friends, we're going to have to wait just a little while longer because that is going to do it for this week's episode of The Living Force.